30th. I did skip yesterday, and let me explain why. It's kind of a funny story. It's also not a funny story at the same time. So, rewind back to Tuesday morning, right? We're all chit-chatting, having a good time, good deep conversation for about 30 or so minutes. I pull up to my work, okay? I have like a parking lot attendant type people, okay, at my work. So I pull up to my work. One of them notices there's a nail in my tire. I was like, oh, well, thank you for letting me know. So obviously I pull up to the side before I go park anywhere, kind of check it out. There was a nail in my tire, and it was leaking air. It's like, okay, well, obviously this ain't gonna work out. Luckily, because I do work in IT, right, I'm able to work from home. So basically said, hey guys, I'm working from home today. So went and took it, and then realized when I got to the tire shop, they repaired it. Okay, awesome. But they had the wrong phone number on file, so they never called me. Right, so then that next morning, right, so fast forward to Wednesday morning, I go and check, and they say, oh, we were letting you know, by the way, you actually had holes and nails in all 4 of your tires, but we couldn't replace them because you didn't answer the phone. I'm like, well, what number did you call? They list some number, it's not my number. And I'm like, oh, well, obviously it's not my number. My bad, whatever. They repaired all my tires, so now we're good back on the road. But that is why we did not film the other day, because I never drove to work, right? Because I worked from home yesterday as well. The funny story is after I dropped my car, after I went and realized like I didn't have anybody to pick me up that day, so I walked 2 miles back to my house. If you ever think, oh, I don't live that far away from somewhere, it's only a mile, 2 miles. Walking there will take you at least 40-something minutes. Okay. Just want to let you know. So now today's agenda. First things first, Iran update. Nothing's happened. Markets, really nothing really happened. Kind of in this steady state until everything kind of pops off. So that's all is well, I guess you could say, in the world. There's a lot of things that we need to fix, this, that, and the other. But as far as just day to day, everything is pretty smooth sailing. Nothing drastic is changing. Now, today's topic, because last time we talked about government systems, and I kind of was talking about how my outlook on things. I want to talk about government systems, okay? The overall system, the agencies, right? Just kind of really think about them and gonna go in depth with them, right? So the biggest thing is we'll start off there. Overarching is how we have a 3-structured power system, right? Now, some people love that idea. Some people hate that idea. It is what it is, right? Now, why do we have that 3 power? Just to explain it, okay? Because lots of people get caught up, and we know the president, right? The president is what we know about. Think about, you hear about Congress, but nobody really knows what their job is. And you hear about the Supreme Court, but for most people, they think it's just some ultra high court like Judge Judy, right? So the president is executive branch. Now, the executive branch, think of it as like it's your CEO, okay? So they can make decisions. Well, actually, they don't even have that much power as a CEO. They're more like your supervisor or something like that. So, like, what they can do is they can basically say, how hard do our agencies enforce laws? For example, let's say I was president and I wanted to enact a national ice cream day. I have the power to do so because it's like an executive order or action, and it's a business that can make it a holiday. Now, does that mean all companies have to follow the holiday? No, but it normally means that federal agencies can follow that holiday and have to take the day off, or can't take the day off, this, that, and the other. So, kind of getting on top of that one, but that's the executive branch. They can do actions as far as control their agencies, such as the departments, such as the Department of State, Department of Defense, Department of War, whatever you want to call it. Department of Homeland Security, right? So it's like you have the ability to how closely do we focus on enacting the law? How strict are we in our interpretation of X, Y, Z? Okay, so that's the president. There's no power with money other than how departments kind of handle it, and they can request money from Congress. Okay, Congress is the legislative branch. Now, an easy way to understand the legislative branch is they're the purse. They control the money. They're the funding team. Okay, the accounting team. myself too much. So the hard part about Congress is you are one person in a huge body, no matter if you're in the House or the Senate, okay? Whichever one you're in. The Senate is 100, the House, I believe, the House Senate is 100, and the House is like 200, something the exact, I don't know for sure, so I apologize for not knowing exactly how many are in the House. The House is controlled by population, so depending on how big of a state you are, depends on how many representatives you get, history class 101, yada, yada, yada. The Senate is even, so every state gets 2 senators, so it's a huge, state like California may have 2 or will have 2, and then a small state like Vermont or New Hampshire will also have 2, just to kind of keep the balance. Now, why do we have 2 Congresses, I guess you could say, or a House and a Senate? The idea behind it is that the House can get stuff done quickly, right? Because all you need is a simple majority. So if me and 200 and however many other people, friends of mine, decide we want to make a national ice cream slush fund where everybody can get free ice cream off this and it's free for everybody, okay? And I get my majority, my simple majority, to all agree with me on that, okay? And we're all in cahoots, we all understand that's what we want, okay? Then we are golden, we can get that passed through. Then it goes to the Senate, and the Senate needs 60 votes, a supermajority. So they don't just need 51 out of the 100, they need 60 to make sure minorities aren't taken. Minorities as in the sense of the minority party, or whoever's not in power, as far as however you want to think about it. They can't just be ran over, right? Called the filibuster. Now, some people have been talking, if you've followed politics at all recently, they were talking about abolishing the filibuster, this, that, and the other. I personally think that's a terrible idea. That's my opinion, okay? Because then we're going to get into... then we're going to get real bipolar. You're going to go from one side wanting this, and everybody, we're going to basically revamp and become that. You're going to have the other side wants the complete opposite. You're going to revamp to go in that, okay? So that's where the issue is there, is that there's just a lot of fluctuation. And for a common American citizen like myself, that is not ideal. We want stability, we want safety, we want good money, good house, we want all that. If you're constantly putting us in flux with different laws, different this, different that, that's too much to go back and forth, especially because the House, they're elected every 2 years. Okay? So for example, if you get into the House in 2024, you're up for re-election now. The Senate, I believe it's 6 years. Don't hold me to that, I believe it's 6 years. So in their heads, it's, well, if you're in for 6 years, you're less likely to be pressured because you're not concerned with being reelected, right? In 2 years, the House representatives have to get done quick, and it can at least say, look what I passed, if you go back to who appointed you or who elected you in, say, look what I passed for you. Did it get approved and put into law? Probably not, maybe not, possibly did, but probably not. So then you can at least say you did your part and get reelected, right? But the Senate's supposed to be where cooler heads prevail, where we can kind of talk it out, think about it, and it should be hard to pass in the Senate for that reason, okay? Now, then there's the judicial branch or the Supreme Court, and again, I'm going really long on this, but I'm trying to explain the overall systems. So the Supreme Court basically says, in this power structure, they say is something constitutional or something unconstitutional, right? So if the president, for example, wants to say, I want to put the budget to $1 gazillion for the soup fund, or the ice cream fund, excuse me, the ice cream fund we were talking about. The Supreme Court would say, obviously, sir, you don't have the power of the purse. You can't do that. It's unconstitutional, so you're going to have to suck it up, buttercup, right? So those are the 3 different powers that are in our government. Now, why am I saying all this? Because there's lots of talk recently in my world, right, in the world I live in, right, of being engaged in politics, but also not being ultra engaged. I'm not a political scientist. I'm not going to go deep dive into something. I don't care that much. Because at the end of the day, this is the biggest thing at the end of the day, is try your best to be a good person, right? Try your best to work hard and chase whatever your dream is. Because the one other thing, and this is just get on a soapbox, so I apologize for derailing myself from the topic I was supposed to be focused on, but it's my show. I can do what I want. Okay, we're driving to work together, just chit chat. Your life is too short. Okay, life is too freaking short for you to be concerned with this person, the senators doing this for you, the representatives, the president doing this for you. Vote what makes sense for you and for because your vote matters. But don't become one of these people where you can't have common conversations, you can't be friends with somebody if they don't believe what you believe. Don't try to always have an open mind and be independent, because there's in no world should you give that much power to somebody to ruin your life. Okay, but they're also not going to save your life. So you have to keep that in mind as you're looking through this. Now, that being said, I'm sorry, I'm thirsty. I apologize. Not coffee, by the way. Water, lime juice, water, and a lemon Mio. It's like a Sprite, but in my head, healthier. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if Mio's got a bunch of sugar or not. But anyway, so lots of people have been talking about the DSA, okay, back on them, about abolishing the Senate, about abolishing the president. And then in my head, what I want to talk about, because I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty, because then we'll be talking for, like I said, a whole episode, and we'll maybe do that, do like dedicated episodes. This is kind of still very early in my show where I want to kind of just talk broadly. But what are the other options? You could do like an authoritarian, right? You can do it to where like you have one person, like an emperor. For those who know ancient Rome and like the big empire, Roman Empire that they make movies about, Julius Caesar and all that, they were a republic. Okay, so they went from basically what we are. We have voted officials, but theirs was a little bit more nuanced. Okay, but basically they became an authoritarian where like the emperor has ultimate power. So if the emperor wants to say, I want to budget 60 gazillion for the military, he can do that just like that. Now, where do you get the money? That's a different answer. Okay. But so we have that option. We have a pure democracy, which wouldn't work because a pure democracy is majority rules. So that's the other thing, is that we're not a pure democracy. We're a democratic republic. People forget that. So imagine, I don't want to use that example. Imagine majority of the population in America wants there to be free ice cream for everybody, and you're in the minority that wants it to be free yogurt instead. Okay? Because you're not in the majority, you would lose. It'd be free ice cream, not free yogurt. And then normally, what actually ends up happening with trade-offs is the ice cream's free because you have to pay more for the yogurt, right? So you could, in theory, get the short end of the stick if it's a pure democracy, because it just depends on what the majority wants, which is good if it's balanced, right? Which is the hard part. So that being said, right? So then the question becomes, okay, then what's the next option? What do we do? Like, what is another system that would work better? Right? And I genuinely don't think there is one. Okay? I don't think there is one that's going to work better for the benefit of most. Not all, because not everybody's ever going to be happy. And not just the minority. Unfortunately, they don't always get what they want because they are the minority. But for most people, this system seems to be, if used correctly, let me put that in there, because corruption ruins everything, right? You could have an authoritarian system with a genuinely nice guy, and everybody loves the system. But then you put in the next person behind him is a corrupt guy, and all of a sudden the system goes to hell, and nobody has a good life anymore. So any system, in a sense, can be ran well, but the best system to kind of mitigate and kind of keep most people, if not all, safe, no matter who's in power, is kind of what we have. Now, off of that topic, right? That's just something to think about. What other system could we use? What other system works? Because like communism isn't necessarily a system; it's more of a way of thinking, right? So it's like if we all live on a commune, condominium or whatever they call that word is. I apologize for butchering that word, but we all are equal. Everybody shares the same thing. Nobody's got private property. We're all for the state, but we all live kumbaya, right? It's an ideal. It's not necessarily a system. It's like a belief. Okay, so now off of that, let's move on. So the big thing, let's go over. So to follow that up with the midterms, right? If you don't know what the midterms is, it's basically all those people in the House are being reelected, right? They're all now up for reelection. It's halfway through the presidency. What happens is they set it up in a way where whoever's in power in Congress, whenever the president takes over, he's elected for 4 years. Halfway through their presidency, you basically reelect half of the House, like half of the Senate, and it doesn't exactly that way. You basically have re-elections, right? And the idea behind it is that you won't get stuck in this like 4 years of them all being on the same team. You always have fluidity and dynamics. But so we're in the midterms right now, and I don't know which side is winning, and I honestly don't care which side is winning because, like I've talked about before, for those who do care, I'm anti-party. I just don't think that a two-party system works. I think that you needed more voices. I think you need more discourse. Now, will it slow things down? Yes. But the more voices you have talking, and you don't just have one side or the other, there's more reason for us to come into the middle and be reasonable, not for us to basically hate on the other person because they're not your party, right? Because that's just how the system is set up. But anyway, yeah, so like the midterms are set up in that way. So now the other question would be then, now because y'all got me thinking now, right? So now I'm thinking, as we're sitting here driving to work together, I'm thinking about some stuff. So then the question would be, what are the issues that we all agree on? Affordability, check. Okay, now affordability is a very broad topic, right? Because you could argue, okay, is the prices of a thing too expensive? Well, yeah. Okay, but is it the groceries? Is it healthcare? Is it insurance? For some, it's insurance, right? The insurance having to pay X, Y, Z. For some, it's credit card bills, right? Their interest rates are enormous and awful and just too much. For some, it is no. I genuinely have no debt. I make X amount a year, and I basically pay $500 a week for groceries because I have 4 kids. Like, there's plenty different issues, everybody. But I think if you blanket affordability in the sense of you have a broad effect, right? You rather raise the wages, which I've talked about in a previous episode about time, tax cuts, this, that, and the other. But like, you rather raise wages, but in a way that doesn't raise prices on everybody, right? So it's a hard balancing act, right? So if you were president or you were an emperor, what would you do, right? In your head, you say, well, I would obviously make everybody get paid more. Okay, cool. But if you do that, what happens is the profit margins of the companies go down. Who's going to pay for those profit margins going down? Because it's all capitalism still, which is capitalism is good. It's not a bad thing. It's just this is how you have to think about it. Okay? So then the question becomes, well, what do you do instead? Well, the answer to that would be you don't raise the wages, but you bring the cost down. Okay, well then do you cut regulations? Like, do you make it easier to produce? Yeah, but that also can come with some health concerns. Okay, well, how do you balance that? Right? There's all of these trade-offs. Nothing is just correct. Everything is in this weird, what are you willing to stomach? What are you not willing to stomach? Right? So here's a thought experiment for you again. Is what would you do? Right? If I put you in that situation, if I said, hey, you have a magic wand. Any tax thing you want to do will be done, and you're good. Any price changes you want to make, any wage make, like if you could just change whatever, what's that balancing? Think about that, because that's hard to think about. It's a very difficult thing to try to understand. And once you kind of realize that is the issue itself, is how do you combat affordability for people, then all of a sudden you understand the game, right? That's whenever it gets real, because you have to think critically, which is what we need in this world. I believe that some of the biggest issues are caused when people stop thinking and stop arguing and stop debating and stop talking. Hence why I'm doing this show, right? It has nothing to do with wanting viewers. It has nothing to do with people, because right now I have zero people watching me. That's fine. I'm doing this to talk and to think out loud and to put something on the internet, right, that maybe for some random reason 5-10 years from now somebody somewhere likes what they're hearing and I force them to think, right? That's all I want out of this life. Help people think, express my opinions, and hopefully make us improve us in some way. Okay. Now that being said, so now that I've left you with that thought, okay. Ooh, that bump was big. Oh, that bump was big too. All right, let's move on to the next one. I kind of talked in a broad sense about healthcare, 5 years. Ooh, okay, yeah. So, kind of already asked, like, what would the world look like in 5 years? I've asked that before. So now my question is, what makes a country a country? Okay, think about that point too. So, and we're at 20-some minutes. We're coming up close to the end of the show. Okay, so like, and I'm getting close to work anyway, so it makes sense. So what makes a country a country? Is it the natural resources? Sorry. Is it the economy? Okay. Is it the military? Is it the social programs? Is it the culture? Okay. Is it the innovation? These are lots of big questions you have to ask yourself. Like, what makes a country a country? I would argue it's multiple aspects, but that's a cheap way to say you don't want to pick, right? So if you were going to tie and force me to make a decision, what makes a country a country? I would say the cultural/patriotism. Put that in there. Because if you have a group of people who believe that we are one, we are united, we are a thing, even if they're nomadic, they're technically a country. Right, they are a group of people who live together in I guess in thought and experiment. You are a society, so you have your own social constructs, this, that, and the other. So I would say society, which is also, you could argue, culture/patriotism, being able and wanting to work together to create a union and more stable living situation. I'll say that for now because I can't think of a better word off the top of my head. But so that would be my answer. I'm curious what your answer is. But anyway, so I'm going to leave you with that thought process, because now it's a train, so now we're all stuck. But I'm going to leave you with that thought to think about. I hope this makes you think. I hope you enjoy the show. Thank you for listening to episode 3 if you listen to the commute. I'll see you tomorrow morning unless something else happens with my truck. You guys have a great rest of your day.